These are my thoughts on the Novation Circuit Rhythm.
Freebie.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to Freebeat, where I post new music-related content every single day, so if that sounds good to you, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and be sure to check out my upcoming free live stream concert, Freebeat Live, 1 year later. It's on Saturday, July 31st at both 11 a.m. Pacific Time and 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Also, if you'd like the chance to have your music featured in the show, just click the link in the description below. Hope to see you there. Let's get started. So earlier today, Novation finally pulled the curtain back on the Circuit Rhythm, which is the sample-based sibling of the Circuit Tracks, which launched earlier this year. If you don't know what the Circuit Tracks is, or the Circuit workflow in general, I suggest doing a little bit of research. I don't want to get too into it here. I just want to skip ahead to my thoughts. Now, I do not have my hands on a Circuit Rhythm or a Circuit Tracks. Novation has never reached out to me or anything like that. So, I just want to clear that right now. But I decided, because other YouTubers do have their hands on the Circuit Rhythm, and I've been able to watch quite a few videos on it already, I decided to give my thoughts, because I feel like maybe you want to hear them. So, yeah. Price-wise, the Circuit Rhythm stayed the same, $399 US. Let's just get that out of the way. This is a sample-based version of the Circuit Tracks. So this time around, we just get 8 sample tracks. That's it. Those are all the tracks you get. That's honestly pretty good. 8 sample tracks as opposed to 2 synth, 2 MIDI, and 4 sample tracks on the Circuit Tracks. So, 8 sample tracks, nice and flexible. It uses the same exact sequencer as the Circuit Tracks, so you unfortunately only get 8 patterns per track, and each pattern can only be up to 16 steps or 2 measures long, so that's very limiting. I've talked about how I think that is one of the worst part of modern grooveboxes is the lack of available patterns. All that still holds up. I am just not a fan. It's not enough. The PO33, for instance, which is an $89 US device, a sampler with a line-in sampler and mic on board, gives you 16 single measure patterns, which is effectively the same as 8 two-measure patterns. Now, granted, on the Circuit Rhythm and Tracks, that's per track, so you can mix and match to get some different combinations there, but still, very disappointing for those of us who want to make longer songs or songs with more nuance. This is definitely a live performance device, not one with compositions in mind. So the big features of the Circuit Rhythm are line-in sampling. So you get 2 inputs, and you can sample directly onto the Circuit Rhythm itself. Very, very cool. A lot of people have been asking for that on the circuits for a while, so awesome to see that. It does have resampling too, which came as a surprise to me. So you can basically record the output of the rhythm back into itself and resample. Very cool. Now, the downside. All the sampling is mono, so whether you're sampling or resampling, it's going to be mono. It is what it is. If that's a deal breaker for you, I get it. But that's just what they decided to do. Now, here's something that is going to be a deal unbreaker for a lot of folks. You can finally pitch your samples chromatically on a Circuit device. So the Circuit Rhythm lets you pitch your samples chromatically. Circuit users have been asking for this for a very long time, so it's great to see. It was basically a given, considering that this device is sample-based, but still, good to see it there. In terms of sampling time, we approximately get 220 seconds per pack. Packs are basically collections of your sounds, patterns, projects, and all that. You can only have 1 pack loaded at a time. They are stored on the external SD card, and there is no streaming from the SD card. So if there's a sound that you want that's in a different pack, you have to completely load that new pack in. I'm not a fan of the pack-based system, and I think it's a real bummer because, once again, it's just limiting us from being as creative as we could be. So no streaming from the SD card is a big bummer from me. I get it, that's just the Novation Circuit workflow, that's part of the system, but I'm not a fan of it. Something else I'm not a fan of is there is no polyphony in this device. So if you sample, let's say, a single pad note, you cannot play a chord. You can't do it, no polyphony. Of course, you can sample a chord and just trigger those individual chords, but you cannot sample one note and then play it polyphonically, so no chords that way. That is another thing that's going to be a deal breaker to some. I get it. That's pretty disappointing, honestly. One thing that's not disappointing is the appearance of grid effects, which seem to be pretty similar to the punch-in effects found on pocket operators or the OPZ. I'm a huge fan of punch-in effects because they make it very, very easy to immediately spice up your live performance just with the push of a button. So 2 thumbs up from me on grid effects. And that's basically it for the new stuff on the Circuit Rhythm, at least on the surface from what I can tell. It still has all the other great circuit features, so you know, you get the grid-based workflow with the different pads. It's kind of launchpad style. You still have all of your encoders up top for like low-pass, high-pass filter, your effects. There's a really nice sounding overdrive effect. Sample manipulation, you know, it's got pretty basic sampler features as well, so you can, you know, have it so it listens for a certain threshold, a certain level, and it won't start sampling till your input reaches that level. Plus, like I said, all the stuff that was essentially on the original circuit and the circuit tracks is there. So chances are, if you like the circuit workflow, you will like this one as well. It's going to be very similar. Gabe Miller, watching him fly around with it, basically, you know, cemented that idea for me that it's the same exact workflow, just with a sample-based machine instead of something that has a little bit of everything like the circuit tracks. So, $400, $399 US for this thing. I think that's a pretty disappointing price point. Like I said, the PO33 comes in at $89 US. It still gives you the ability to sample from a line in or from the onboard microphone. Gives you 16 different single measure patterns. You can sample up to 8 sounds and it'll play them across a scale. And then you can also sample into 8 different drum kits, and each drum kit can have up to 16 one-shots in there. So there's a lot you can do with that. You do only get 40 seconds of sampling time, but it's also only $89 US. You also get basic sample control, so like length editing, as well as a basic low-pass, high-pass filter, 16 different punch-in effects, all that in a little credit card-sized machine for less than $100. The Circuit Rhythm coming in at $400 also puts it $100 more than the Electron model samples, which I think is a far superior value to the Circuit Rhythm. The only thing the Rhythm has over the model samples is direct sampling. On the model samples, you do have to load your samples via micro USB and a computer, which is the only real downside. Of course, I have the model cycles, and I've talked about that sequencer at length. It's the same as the model samples, 96 patterns per project, and each pattern can be up to 64 steps long. Now, that's what I want to see in a circuit device. You also get a gigabyte of sample storage on the model samples, and I believe 64 megabytes per project, I think that's true. So honestly, that's kind of similar to what the Circuit Rhythm gives you, but again, you get far more patterns to play with. So you know, you can have really intricate drums. You can basically edit on the model samples in a linear timeline fashion, which is really, really cool in my opinion. Electron also just released the battery handle for the model cycles and model samples, and that's only $49 US. So for $349 US, you can have a completely portable model samples, and that's still $50 cheaper than the Circuit Rhythm. So unless you really need that line-in sampling, I'd say go for the model samples. There's also the Roland SP404 and its many iterations out there. Of course, a legendary sampler. Not much more needs to be said on that. You can get used ones for less than $400, I'd say. And the Circuit Rhythm feels like kind of a direct competitor to that, so I definitely recommend taking a look at the SP404 from Roland if you are in the market. I think another reason that myself and from what I've seen, other people are disappointed in the Circuit Rhythm announcement is that it's not the Circuit Pro that we were hoping for. You know, if we could have the circuit workflow with, say, a gigabyte of onboard sample storage and the sequencer from the Electron devices, I mean, that would be awesome. I think $499 US would be a good price for that. But from what they've given us, I think it's about $100 too expensive. I think $299 would have at least made this competitive with the model samples. But like I've said, I think the model samples right now just blows this thing away unless you absolutely need direct onboard sampling. The Circuit Rhythm just kind of seems to be a boring device. Nothing really stands out about it. I'd personally, if I had to pick one of the two, I'd go with the circuit tracks, just because 4 sample tracks I think is plenty. And, you know, especially with the sampler being so basic and nothing really being unique about it, I'd rather have 2 synth tracks and 2 MIDI tracks on top of 4 of those sample tracks. 8 just seems like too much. Now, if you have never bought a sampler before and you're really looking to scratch that sampling itch, I'd say go for the Teenage Engineering PO33. It's $89 US, and like I've said, it has a lot in common with the Circuit Rhythm. Obviously a lot more basic, but it's a great place to start if you're just trying to get into a sampling-based workflow. Now, I've also seen some comparisons to the MPC-1, and that's funny to me because I think the MPC-1 just absolutely wipes the floor with the Rhythm. They are obviously two very different devices. The MPC-1 is a full-blown DAW replacement with like synth and drum plugins, full linear timeline editing with up to 999 measures per sequence, not per song, per sequence. You get the famous MPC sampler, which that by itself just has too many features and options to list. You do get a step sequencer, you get an insane amount of effects that can be applied in a wide variety of ways. You get 8 audio tracks, like just right there you get 8 full audio tracks, 128 MIDI tracks, CV tracks, stereo pair, and it's just no contest. Now, the MPC-1 is also double the price and is not as immediate as the Circuit Rhythm, so I don't actually think they're really worth comparing, but if you are looking for bang for your buck and you can afford it, the MPC-1 is definitely the way to go. Now, another thing to keep your eye on as time goes by is Novation dropping updates for the Rhythm. They have an incredible history of keeping their devices up to date with new features long past the launch date. The Circuit Tracks has already received a major firmware update, which increases the sampling time from 60 seconds to 180 seconds. So that's another point, I guess. The Circuit Rhythm is a completely sample-based machine and only has approximately 220 seconds of sampling time, where the Circuit Tracks still has 180 seconds of sampling time. So not much less than the Circuit Rhythm, plus you get the synth tracks and the MIDI control tracks. Now, the Circuit workflow is fantastic, and I feel like the Rhythm and the tracks were like so close to being home runs, but the limited pattern count, limited sampling time, especially on the Rhythm, which again is a device based around samples, and lack of standout features against similarly or I guess even cheaper competitors make both of them look like passes to me. However, like I said, if you are a fan of the Circuit workflow and want something sample-based, then definitely go ahead and pick up the Rhythm because you are going to love it. So I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on the Novation Circuit Rhythm and I guess some more thoughts on the Circuit Tracks. Let me know if you're planning on picking up either of these devices. Leave a comment down below, let me know. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like on it. If not, you can leave a dislike, that's okay too. Doesn't hurt my feelings, just makes me try that much harder next time. Either way, be sure to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Thank you so very much for being here. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.